First, just kind of talk about the nutrition store, how it came to be, just kind of your background as far as your experience in education and what you do here.
So I started bodybuilding when I was 14 years old. My dad got me into the gym. It was actually I was kind of honestly, it was an insecurity. I was always called fat ass by my friends, and when I was young, like middle school,
Right.
and so it developed this insecurity with me. Dad got me a pull-up bar when I was 14, and I just made it a point to do pull-ups every day, going in and out of my bedroom.
Yeah.
By the end of that summer, I had lost 20 pounds just from doing pull-ups and running.
Wow.
And I could do 30 pull-ups at a time. And, I was like 14 years old, just thought it was great. My dad got me a gym membership, so it was like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
I quickly fell in love with it, with lifting, man. And it sounds cliche, but I was the kid in high school with the gallon jug. I was walking around like I needed to drink all that water. Quit football because bodybuilding was life. I was going to be Mr. Olympia one day. That was it.
Yeah.
I fell in love with nutritional science, man. That was like science. That was the thing for me, was like how things happen and dissecting things, why they happen.
Yeah.
Started out school in dietetics at Winthrop University, and I quickly realized that nutrition, like dietetics, its focus is more what's the word I'm looking for? Therapeutic, right? They're going into a hospital working with sick people, whereas I want to work with people, like not sick people. I want to help prevent those things. So I switched over to exercise science. I switched my focus. Wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach, right? I was like, I can help people who are athletes.
Yeah.
Fast forward 2 years, my senior year, I'm about to finish my degree, 1 year away, and I get a job with a small store called Rock Hill Nutrition. And throughout this whole time, I had been working with nutritional scientists under those PhDs, even though I wasn't a major in nutrition, right? Still learning, a wealth of knowledge. Got a degree in exercise science, and then during that time, I was still working for Rock Hill Nutrition. And the whole concept of his store was, be honest with people. Like, don't sell products that don't have research.
Yeah.
Don't make claims about products that aren't true, right? And don't upsell, right? And those are all the bad qualities that a nutrition store gets a bad rap for. Don't go shop with them because they're just trying to make money.
Yeah.
So by the time I graduated, man, I'd already, fell in love with the concept of starting my own business, entrepreneurship, wanting to do this, right? So we filed all the paperwork, LLC, and laid down all the groundwork, and fast forward 2 years, here we are, right? So moral of that ramble, the nutrition store represents providing supplement education and products with real honesty, trying to bring them real knowledge so that they can get real results.
Okay.
So yeah, no BS here. That's my whole policy.
No, absolutely. That's
So
great. So that's part of what we're talking about is from a lot of like professional bodybuilders, it's known that they use steroids.
Oh yeah,
It's not particularly a secret, but there are young guys who are getting into the sport now that aren't aware. And
no, yeah,
they might think, offhand that these results are achievable naturally. Things like Ronnie Coleman and Flex Wheeler.
yeah.
And so then these bodybuilders go and they kind of like hide their steroid use, which is understandable because
Well, and the thing is, they don't do it because they're dishonest people. You have to realize that they're hiding that because they are making money off of, and they're making their living off of the supplement companies that are writing them checks to say they take X supplements, right? And so if I came to you and said, hey, dude, if you talk about this, I'm taking away your income, what would you do, right? You'd probably keep it hush-hush.
Exactly.
So, I don't blame them, but at the same time, it also creates a massive misconception behind getting that big, right?
Exactly.
And, once you're in the industry, it's already a well-known thing. It's like, hey, dude, you're doing this, this, and this. I'm doing this, this, and this, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, supplements ain't going to get you that big. That's the truth. That is, there's genetic freaks, but then there's, the next level with AAS and stuff. So.
Yeah. So can you give me like a rough breakdown of the kind of demographic of customers you see in here? Is it more like casual lifters or gym goers, or is it more like athletes?
It's mostly casual people, man. We see about, I'd say there's a solid 75% male customer base here. Little, maybe a little less, but 75% male. Age range between 18 and 40 is kind of our big gap that we see the most of here.
Okay.
But then we see people from all populations.
Right.
It just depends. It takes a lot more for the older population to trust us because they're young. We're young guys running the store, guys who work out. Right, we're often perceived as having less knowledge on certain aspects of health. Right, because all we know about is muscle building.
Right.
That's kind of the demographic we deal with is young people, younger.
Okay.
So.
Which I mean, the distinction between athlete and casual lifter is kind of important there because 80% of those who take anabolic steroids are not doing it to gain a competitive athletic edge.
Exactly. Yeah.
Normally, when we think about steroid users, we think about people who, like, say, the Russian doping scandal. But most steroid users are just trying to get bigger.
They are, and it all starts with what sells the most, right? Sex sells, right? And so you being a young dude, 18 to 19, if we're talking about the guys who come in here and get advice on AAS, try to, want to learn more about that, they're usually young idiots, and I say idiots very, very strongly, because when I was 18 and 19, I didn't think a 24-year-old guy knew anything. I knew it all, right? And I'm only 24, and these kids are, whatever. 18 and 19, you've had insecurity issues being raised, right? You're getting into the gym. You know what it's like to develop a little bit of self-confidence under the bar because you're gaining strength. Well, of course you want to get as big as possible because that's what you think is going to get you laid, right? And then as you mature and after you've made the mistakes, you realize that is nothing. That's not why you should do it. Right. And so, there's a lot of people who do it initially just to see, right? Just to test the waters. Right. Like, I'm going to get my feet wet with this. I want to gain about 20 pounds and I'll be done. And then it spirals, right? Because the thing about hormones is once you introduce an exogenous hormone into an endogenous system, your body shuts it down, right? So you're creating a whole spiral of lifelong issues.
I mean, that's the thing is I think a lot of people don't realize that anabolic steroids are addictive. I mean,
no doubt. Yeah.
That's why they're, a Schedule 3 drug is because they're known to have physical and psychological, create those dependencies.
Oh, exactly. And, just as much physical as psychological. We could say that it's only psychological because you see how big you get and then you start to realize that you're getting weaker and whatnot psychologically. There's a physical dependence that occurs when you, especially with just the testosterone-based drugs, right? Because you introduce testosterone, you're shutting your body's natural production down.
Right.
That downregulates so much that when you finally come off, your body will go into panic mode, right? You'll shut down, you'll feel weak, depressed, all kinds of issues that come from it. So
you mentioned some people come in the store and talk to you explicitly about steroid use?
Well, here's the thing, we're not condoning the use of anything here, right? We're not condoning the use of any illegal substance, but my whole policy is if you're going to do them, at least get advice from somebody who's going to steer you in the right direction, right? I don't want these kids to hurt themselves. And if, we do have some guys that'll say, hey, I was just doing this, and this. What do you think a good route should be? 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say, come off, right? That's just the solid advice I'm going to give them. But then I deal with these kids who they'll come in and they're not explicitly asking me, right? Because they don't want to admit it.
Right.
They'll come in, they'll kind of like scratch their face and look at the test boosters like, you need help with anything, man? This happens once a week easily.
Right.
Well, I just need a good PCT. Well, what are you coming off of? What is it, bro? A test, Deca, Winnie, Anavar, Anadrol, Trend, Right. So I usually have to pry it out of them because I get in their face too. I'm pretty aggressive with young guys. If you're 18 or 19 and you tell me you're doing this, okay, well you think you're an adult, you're going to be treated like an adult.
Right.
And I lay it on the line.
Yeah.
So that's what we do with kids in here. Try to give them tough love if they're willing to listen.
Right.
So.
So have you? I'm guessing since based on what you told me now, but this is before I did this. So what do you know of the muscle dysmorphia phenomenon, or as a body image disorder? Or maybe not even by that name, but what do you think of?
I think that it presents itself in many ways, right? So muscle dysmorphia or body dysmorphia, right, is obviously seeing the body as not what it actually is. That's any psychological, physical condition. Same thing as anorexia, bulimia. I think it's a real issue, but I also think that things like anabolic steroids actually can enhance that issue, make it worse.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, right? And this is from personal experience. This is from seeing how it interacts with your hormones and your feelings on things. I've never personally dealt with it on a crazy level. I did go through phases, right, where it was my sole focus to achieve X body composition, and I would really beat myself up for doing something wrong, right? Like eating something wrong and then looking in the mirror and feeling like nasty about myself.
Right.
But I never struggled with it on a deep level. So I think if you're more prone to that, substances like anabolics can make it a lot worse because, you get this massive yield of results immediately.
And it's not sustainable.
Exactly.
Right.
So definitely not a good combo there.
Would you say that would be where the distinction lies in terms of difference between just, some gym bro with a fitness page on Instagram and someone who genuinely has a mental disorder? Would you say that was the distinction would be when you're obsessed, one little mistake can completely destroy your...
Yes and no. I mean, I think psychological disorders can present themselves differently with different people. There's plenty of gym bros that post on Instagram to self-glorify themselves.
Exactly.
And it's usually an immediate identification of what's wrong with them. You can tell the people that low-key are really unsatisfied with themselves with how much they post about themselves, right? If you're constantly posting about you, and your body, there's going to be something on the back end or something in there that that's an easy identifier. So I guess the thing is, the people that may seem the most confident might have the most to hide, Yeah. I don't think that answered that question, but I think hit both points there, whatever.
Just checking our time there.
Oh, yeah, you're good.
So what is your opinion on the current federal legislation on steroids as far as
all right,
substances act?
I think it does no good.
Okay.
I'm not like I said, I'm not condoning the use, but with my political stance, obviously it gets political, right? I am very libertarian in the aspect of substance use.
Okay.
I am very education oriented, right? Given the proper education, proper understanding, and proper regulation of said substances, I think that a U.S. American should be allowed to do what they want with themselves. Now, with that being said, obviously in sporting agencies, and when it comes to competitive sports where people are making money to perform very, above average, right. I think there obviously should be a regulation. I'm not in agreement with that. But I think across the board, the strict regulation on these drugs is only driving the underground market higher and higher, right? So we're keeping unregulated dollars flowing through the system. This whole, you can say the same about pot. You can say the same about other substances that are regulated, right? We're just keeping money out of the U.S. system by funneling it underground.
Right.
So I don't think the regulations should be where they're at. I think we should improve it, So yeah.
I mean, that's part of the thing is we've spent all this money on these laws and the Controlled Substances Act and stuff like that. And when was the last time you heard someone be indicted for steroid use?
No,
it doesn't happen.
Exactly.
They're not enforced.
No, and it's not it's a very petty crime. When I was in college, I knew the guy. I didn't know he was a dealer, right? I didn't know this was before I even, got into understanding what that stuff was.
Right.
He got busted with I think 70 or 80 vials of testosterone in his car. That's a lot. That's definitely distribution.
Yeah.
He got a $500 fine. That was it.
Slap on the wrist.
Yeah. It's not, and it amazes me that certain substances are higher up on the list than that.
Yeah.
But hey, Uncle Sam does what Uncle Sam wants, man.
Yeah.
Thing is, half the people enforcing these laws are also doing anabolic steroids.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not one to speak locally, right? I can't speak for where we are because I don't know. But where I went to school, there was a large population of law enforcement that was doing it.
Really?
Yeah, man. I mean that they think about what kind of people they are, right? Let's take a little backtrack. Why do people become cops?
To feel strong, to have power.
Maybe, right? They might want to genuinely do the right thing. They might want to help people.
Right.
But yeah, usually it's because they have some kind of, there's some kind of underlying insecurity or complex of power.
Right.
Well, what do steroids do, man?
That's true.
They make you feel powerful.
Yeah.
And so there's that whole it's hilarious. You can look up some news from 2015 in Spartanburg.
Really?
There was a big bust. I'm not going to say names.
Okay.
A few big names were taken down that night by another few big names that were also buying from that individual. look it up. Crazy stuff. But yeah.
Well, Ronnie Coleman was a policeman.
Oh yeah, dude.
And,
Yeah. Yeah, huge. Yeah. Ain't nothing but a peanut in my ass like that. Yeah. And that. So there's that difference right there. That is IFBB Pro. Mm-hmm. You've come to the realization when you come to that level. Look, dude, this is my life, right? Everybody is understanding in the bodybuilding and in the NPC or IFBB, like steroids are just a part of that.
Right.
But that's a nasty level of drug use. That's drugs that and levels of those dosages of those drugs that were made for horses and cattle, man. Like ridiculous.
Right.
So, but that's a side story too.
Yeah. Well, that's part of what I'm talking about. And I focus on one documentary because it gets a little tangential, but you have have you seen the documentary The King about Ronnie Coleman?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't actually watched that one.
So it's focusing a little bit on the surgeries he's going through now. He's going through a lot of surgeries for pain in his back and his hips and things like that. And they attribute it mainly to lifting lots and lots, like very heavy weight over the years, which is probably true.
Yeah.
But I think also part of it is the steroid use, and they kind of gloss over it in the documentary. There's a story about him and Flex Wheeler right before Ronnie won his first pro show. And Flex talks about how he helped Ronnie relax by giving him like shots of vodka and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so yes and no, and that's kind of where the misconceptions are, right? So like you've got that one camp that there's this unknown, right? We just don't know. And then there's the other camp that steroids are bad. Steroids are going to kill you. Steroids are so terrible. And I'm always one that says maybe. Right, it depends on what we're talking about in reference to steroids, anabolic steroids.
Right.
There's at least 50 to 60 different drugs, that are considered AAS.
Okay, yeah.
And we never really hear of complications from steroid use, even long-term use, other than heart and kidney issues. Right, the whole liver failure myth never attributed to steroids because the liver is the only self-regenerating organ in the body. It heals itself. And I'll say this with anything, in proper regulated use, testosterone therapy, small doses of steroids in your youth, they're usually not going to cause health problems long term. But then you start looking at Ronnie Coleman, start looking at the big names, man. Dude, like I said, they're using cow drugs. So there's that fine line, right? There's the line of, okay, well, I'm going to dabble in this or do it because I want to moderately, which most young people don't, right? Most people are idiots.
Yeah.
Then there's that level, and that's going to cause the problems.
Right.
So I'd be willing to bet that a lot of the oral steroids that Ronnie was taking in his day contributed to joint problems. Yeah. Hands down.
And with Flex Wheeler too, he's
Flex is a whole different. Didn't he have to have a leg amputated last year or 2 years ago?
And he retired because he was diagnosed with some kidney disease. So.
Kidneys, man, people don't realize it. If you're going to be injecting stuff for years on end, you better be giving blood. Yeah. You better be getting some of that bad stuff out. So that's all I'll say.
Yeah. So obviously this doesn't happen in untested sports like bodybuilding, but for example, say the USAPL is controlled by WADA drug testing. So how do you think United States federal law compares to anti-doping administrations that are independent or act on an international level?
So, obviously, sporting agencies are going to be a lot more strict on how they test.
Right.
I mean, United States government doesn't care much, man. I mean, you go apply for a job with government, they're going to piss test you. They might take a blood test if they're really suspicious of you. But, doping agencies like WADA, NCAA, I would consider one. They're going to be a lot more stringent on blood tests, hair tests, pee tests, and really you're just going to lose your status as a professional if you get busted.
Right.
I had a friend who was a very high-level USAPL. 3 years ago, she got busted. She was like one of the tops in the world, and she got busted. We were all pissed because, we thought she was 100% clean, 100% drug-free. Right. Got busted. They took her status. They stripped her of all of her numbers, all of her medals. She was never to be allowed to compete in that federation or any sister federations ever again. Wow. Right? Yeah. And I think that's the right thing to do, though. Once again, if you're competing in a federation that it has stated in the bylaws to be drug free, you should follow those bylaws. Don't cheat. That's where it's cheating to me. If you're in a federation where it's open game, where everybody's doing it and it's just understood, well then at that point it's just a part of the sport. So that's my stance on it.
So As far as amongst young men and avoiding